Very happy to see all of you this morning. My sincere greetings to all of you from the Govardhani village, Galtare, India. It's such a lovely, beautiful place, a very pleasant, sunny morning with birds chirping in the background very sweetly. And I've been here for a while, and it's been an amazing experience to just stay here at this beautiful, serene, calm, holy place. My gratitude to all of you who are logging in from all over the world for joining us on the 16th day of our 21 days habit challenge. Yesterday we heard how if we have to master our good habits, we have to practice them well. And the three elements of practice are: number one, we should practice rightly. Number two, we should practice with great focus and intensity. And number three, we should practice and allow it time. It's only over time that we can master any habit, and especially a good one. This morning, I thought I would discuss with all of you a very pertinent question that many of you have raised either in the comments during these 16 days or in private messages that you have sent during these few days, or even quite a while back. Many of you have sent me messages and questions on email and Facebook, but this is that one question, very pertinent, which has been repeatedly coming to us. The question is, how do we deal with the bad habit of anger? Many times people keep telling me, I'm so short-tempered, I get angry so quickly, I snap at I just snap at small things. I get worked up. I get so disappointed and frustrated very quickly. How do I deal with this bad habit of anger? Now, when we have a boil, as an example, on our hand, there's two ways to deal with that boil. One is the symptomatic solution, which is you blow some air on it, or put some ointment on it, and you blow some air or you put some ointment on it. What happens is you get a temporary stopgap solution. It works. It does work. But it's not a sustainable solution. The second way of dealing with that boil is the pathological solution, which is to actually go to the root cause of why the boil has occurred. So you go and check your blood and get a blood report done. And then probably the doctor may say that there's some impurity in your blood or some problem with your inner system because of which this boil has come up. And here's the solution. You attack the root and the boil is cured in a sustainable way. So yes, you can have a symptomatic solution by doing something temporarily to the boil, but it comes back again. Or you can have a pathological solution where you go to the deeper root cause, the real issue, address that issue and solve the boil forever. Similarly, when it comes to dealing with our anger, the bad habit of anger, you could deal with it in a symptomatic way, which we've discussed in one of our Facebook Live sessions earlier, which is, I said then, that you can postpone your anger, learn to wait, don't express your anger immediately, leave that place if it's possible for you, breathe consciously so that you cool down, or probably at that moment when nothing's possible, just try and call somebody to whom you can confide and open up and just vent out what you feel rather than venting it out on the person in front of you, if it's possible, or just pray at that moment. Now these things they work, not that they don't, but they're very symptomatic. They don't have much sustainability. Plus they're hard at that moment anyways when we get angry. So therefore we truly have to look at the pathological, the much deeper cause of this upsurging emotion called anger. So I very often ask people, why do you think we actually get angry? Unless we are able to identify the cause of the problem, we cannot attack the problem well. I'm not saying the symptomatic shouldn't be done, we should do that as well. But unless we actually go to the root cause of the problem, we are not going to be able to deal with it effectively. So why do we actually get angry? We can answer that question in many different ways, but the angle I'm looking at, the primary reason why we get so upset, worked up and angry, is that the expectations we have of people around us are not fulfilled. We feel disappointed and frustrated that people whom we expect from are not keeping up with our expectations. They are not complying with what we expect of them. And then we just get completely worked up and angry. To give you an example, if you're a parent and you have children, if your children do not perform well in their academics, you get angry, you get upset. Sometimes you even express it. If it's happening in a recurring way, you even express it. Why? Because you expected them to do well in their exams. If your children are not obedient to you, you expect them to be obedient, you expect them to behave well. And if they don't behave well, if they don't obey you, if they don't comply with what you want of them, you get angry. For those of you who are married, you know that you expect something of your spouse, your husband or your wife, and if they do not fulfill your expectation by giving you that time or trying to understand you or trying to understand your situation or trying to give you that affection, you get upset. And that being upset and that being frustrated at a point of time leads to serious, very strong emotion of anger, which even comes out. And different people express their anger in different ways. Some people just spurt out and say unpleasant things or do unpleasant things. Some people just give it a silent treatment by just swallowing the bitter pill, and they harm their own self-esteem, they harm their own inner systems. And some people, they just withdraw themselves, not talking, as if that is the solution. You may find colleagues at your workplace, your bosses, your managers, your colleagues, people around you at your workplace who do not comply with your expectations. And you get worked up and angry. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not the people who are driving you mad. It's the expectation that you have of those people which is not fulfilled that's driving you mad. For example, the neighbor's child doesn't behave well. Do you get worked up? Do you get angry? No. Why? Because you don't have an expectation from the child. Maybe in a subtle way you expect that he behaves well, but it's not directly connected to you. If your neighbor's wife or your neighbor's husband doesn't love each other, do you really get upset about it? Not really. I hope you don't. Not really. Because nothing to do with, it's none of your business really. When do you get worked up? You get worked up when people who are connected to you closely and you expect something of them and they do not fulfill that expectation, you get totally frustrated, angry and worked up. So yes, people have their role in when they do wrong, which contributes to our anger. But the primary source is that your expectation of them and they are not fulfilling your expectation is driving you crazy, working you up and driving you mad. What you're doing is you're giving them the remote control to control your emotions. They control your emotions. If they do well, you feel blissful. If they do bad, you feel completely frustrated. I'm not saying they shouldn't do well. I'm not even saying that you shouldn't think that they should do well. But they're controlling your emotions. And why? Because in that remote control, the battery is your expectation. If you remove the battery of expectation, they can keep pressing the buttons, good or bad. You're not going to be affected much because the battery of your expectations is removed. Now I know that most of you who are watching me live at the moment are thinking that this sounds easier said than done. I know that you're all thinking in your mind that we are not sages sitting in the Himalayan mountains meditating. We live in our real life situations where we are surrounded by our kids, or are surrounded by our spouses, we're surrounded by our friends, we're surrounded by our colleagues who are just who they are, and they're just constantly going to be doing what they're going to be doing. It's easy to say that don't expect. It's easy to say, pull the battery of expectation out of the remote control, and it's easy to say that, yes, they have their role to play, but it's your expectation of them that's driving you mad. It's all easy to say. How do we realistically deal with all of these things in our day-to-day life? Here are a few reflections that I want to offer to all of you this morning on the 16th day of our 21 days habit challenge. And this question has come up so many times because I know that we just around these kind of situations and people, and I know how we really get affected by it. So I thought it's very important that we address this particular issue and problem. Here are the 3 things that we should learn to do when it comes to dealing with our expectations and thereby actually controlling our anger. Sandhya, we are very happy to have you this morning actually. Mini, thank you for joining us. Anuj, Hare Krishna. Kunal, I know you're asking what is the solution. I'm going to tell the solution, but I'm keeping everybody on a cliffhanger for a while as I greet some of you in the middle of our Facebook session. Padmaja, thank you for joining us from Goa. Govindraj, we're very happy to have you. Mihir, good morning. Roshan, I know you are asking how not to expect. That's what I'm trying to tell you. How is it possible that we don't expect? Shankar, thank you for joining us. Ashish, you're saying, yeah, it's very difficult. I know most all of you, your comments are all going on that how is it possible? I know it's very difficult to not expect. Alexandria, thank you for joining us this morning. Surag Adhikari ji, good morning, all the way from Germany. Thank you for joining us. Shalini, thank you for joining us. Vidya, Chetan, very, very happy to have you this morning. Onkar, all the way from Canada, welcome to our Facebook Live session once again. Ankita, thank you for that comment. Mansi, happy to see you this morning as well. What is the solution? Is it possible that we can actually live a life of no expectations at all? I'm sorry to say, unless you're really, really spiritually progressed and advanced and reached the level of a self-realized sage, it is not possible. It is impossible to live a life of no expectations from people. So if you are going to expect and you know that people are not going to fulfill your expectations all the time, God, you're in for potentially being angry all the time, practically every day, because you're going to have expectation and there's going to be somebody through the day who's not going to keep up with that. It could be someone in a home or your office or in a friend circle. Somebody is going to really kind of drive you mad. So what do? I know it's very intriguing, and I know I'm kind of taking you around on a ride today without coming to the point, but I'm also having great fun watching all of you with your wife. I can see the smileys. There are some love buttons and some like buttons, but I can see some surprise and wow, open mouths there. You know, what are you doing here? I also see many angry smileys at me sometimes. I know people are angry with me, and thank you for those who are angry with me. You can vent out your anger with me. I truly do not mind all those angry smileys. I don't know what they are for. If only I could just sit in front of you and understand why you are angry, I would really be happy to. But if you do want to express why you are angry with me, whoever's sending those angry smileys, please do write in the comment section what's your anger about on me. Or you could even send us messages or emails. I'm happy for your feedback, to take your feedback and to understand what makes you angry about me. But let me get to the point now. I've taken you around for a while. God, expectations are going to be there, and people who won't fulfill those expectations are also going to be there. So how are we going to sort out this situation? Number one, I'm not saying don't expect. It's impossible on our levels, the way we are in our lives, not those spiritually realized souls. It's not possible to not expect. We are going to expect. So what should we do? Number one, start becoming realistic about your expectations. Don't have undue expectations. Like, for example, your kids, parents, the example of parents and kids. If you have an expectation that your child stands first in the exam, well, it's a good expectation to have, but you also have to be realistic to see if it's your child's capacity to stand first. If you actually carefully analyze and find out that your child doesn't have the capacity to stand first in the exam, no matter how much you push the child, no matter how much the child pushes himself or herself, no matter how wild you get at the child for not performing well, they cannot get there. So I'm not saying we shouldn't inspire the child. If you get angry because the child's not standing first, you're harming yourself. You're harming the child's self-esteem. You're harming the child's inner confidence. What you need to do is to really be analytical, observant, and be realistic about the capacity of your child to excel. And if you encourage the child to do things according to his or her capacity, you may see that the child may actually come to a much higher level than what he or she was earlier. So be realistic. If you have unrealistic and you have undue expectations, that my child doesn't stand first. Why is the neighbor's child standing first? My child doesn't stand. But the neighbor's child is different. The neighbor's child is different. Your child is different. The neighbor's child's capacity is different. Your child's capacity is different. Encourage your children to come up to their capacity, not to somebody else's capacity, and therefore don't compare. You know? Now sometimes you would have your children not behaving well, not being obedient. Some of you who may have teenage children may come late in the night. They may be involved with things which are not all that pleasant to describe. What would you do? Get angry? Your expectation he should be a Satyavan Harishchandra avatar, one of those people from the ancient ages, but he lives in the modern world, or she lives in the modern world. Your expectation is he should be or she should be pure like an angel from the heavens. They don't live in the heaven, they live on earth. They're surrounded by their friend circle, they're surrounded by social media, they're surrounded by so many pressures, and they start doing things wrong. What are you going to do? Start becoming realistic. And what's a realistic expectation to have? First, try to understand. Why is your child doing this? Is it the company? Is it the social media exposure? Is it peer pressure? Is it performance pressure? Or is it something, a deep kind of loneliness? Is it our improper parenting strategies that's making my child do these kind of things? It's easy to say that my child should behave well. It's easy to say that my child should be obedient. And most parents keep coming and talking to me about these things. I'm not saying the children are not to blame. They have their side of the story. I'm talking to those of you who are parents. We say they are not. But do you actually carefully observe why they are not? So be realistic of your expectations. You expect them to be obedient and behave well. First start also figuring out and understanding why they are doing what they are doing. When you get to the deep, the pathological root of it, I'm not saying you can address it, but you'll be more effective in addressing it than otherwise. Spouses, be realistic in your expectations of each other. When you get married, men, I'm telling you, you're not getting a lady to your home to make her a slave. Ladies, I'm telling you, you're not marrying men to make them your slaves. Those of you who are watching and are in-laws to a girl, I'm telling you, you've not brought in a girl to your home to make her a slave. Ladies and gentlemen, you have to have realistic expectations from people, realistic expectations from life. If you're married, or if you're in a relationship, whichever way, and you're expecting over a couple of years, you can expect that romantic streak to go down. You can expect that you're going to be focusing on the other side of the person as well, which is negative side of the person as well. You're interacting very closely, so you're going to be seeing some faults here and there. Now, to expect that you will have the same kind of affection that you had earlier, affection can be there, but the same kind of romantic feeling from the other? No, it's not possible. To expect that your spouse gives you all that time, it's good to expect, but in the kind of world today, especially if you live in metropolitan cities and the kind of standard of living, the expenditure, both partners are working. God, so difficult. You have to be realistic in what you can expect of others. If you are not realistic and you have undue expectations, when those undue expectations are not fulfilled, well, you can be a potential victim of anger on a day-to-day basis. I know so many men coming and telling me that, my wife doesn't really take too much responsibility at home. She always cribs and complains that she has to do so much. Well, mind you, she is also working. If she was a housewife, she could take the full responsibility. Now that she's working, you have to take half the responsibility as well. As soon as there is a mutual understanding, a lot of things actually start getting sorted out, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm telling you one thing, whether it's your spouses, whether it's your friends, whether it's your gurus and your guides, whether it's your children and your kids, whether it's your sibling or your parents, please, be realistic about your expectations. Don't have undue, unrealistic expectations and paint a rosy, cozy picture that everybody should be like the people who are dropped from the heavens and who can do everything perfectly. Except for God, no one is perfect. Everybody has imperfections. So this is one way to deal with that emotion of anger. Be realistic in your expectations. Don't have undue expectations that people frustrate those undue expectations and make you angry. Have realistic expectations which they can actually keep up to and fulfill. So this is what I call change the changeable. You should learn to change what is changeable in people around you by being realistic about their expectations and then help them change. Now what if you've been realistic, you don't have any undue expectations from your kids, from your spouses, from your family, from your parents, from your siblings. You don't have unrealistic, you're grounded, you're down to earth, you're very realistic, you expect what is due of them only. And still they do not comply with those expectations. My God, you're not having any undue things now, that's gone. But even with the basic realistic things that you expect of them, even those things they're not doing it right. What do you do then? The first one was be realistic and change what is changeable. You've tried to change what is changeable. You've given your best. The second is you have to now be detached. You have done your bit. You have done your bit very well. And you can continue doing your bit, but you can continue doing your bit in a more detached fashion. Why? Because if after giving your best and continuing to do your best, if the person still is going to remain the same, it's his or her life, don't allow their not changing to affect your state of mind. I'm not saying don't continue putting your effort to change. Continue putting your effort to change them, help them, but do not allow them to disturb your peace of mind. Again, easier said than done. We have to learn to practice that detachment. We do our best to help. We are also, in that sense, detached that if they don't, well, I don't want to ruin my peace. And therefore, when I say the second point is be prepared that they may not. Be realistic, change the changeable, be prepared if they're not going to fulfill those expectations, even if they are realistic and you've tried your best, then be prepared and accept what is unchangeable. They're not going to change, accept it. Now what if you cannot even accept it? It's getting too much on your nerves. You've tried your best. You tried to change the changeable. You've tried to be realistic. They didn't change. You were prepared. You accepted the unchangeable. Peacefully going on, trying to go on. It's still not changed, obviously. And now it's just getting hard. Every single day, they're just around you, just getting hard. Therefore, the third principle that I speak about is be spiritual. Be spiritual. And that I call as the R. The first one is C, change the changeable. The second one was A, accept the unchangeable. And the third one is R, which stands for, in an extreme case scenario, remove yourself from the unacceptable. I know some ladies who've been such serious victims of domestic violence. And the man, she tried to change him. He tried to even accept and live with peace. Just too much beyond. All she could do is remove herself from the unacceptable. It's an extreme case scenario only. I don't suggest that we do that in a normal case situation, but we remove ourselves. And if we can't even remove ourselves and we want to continue living there, either we don't have choice or we willingly want to try and make it work. And the third, the R stands for rise above the unacceptable. How do you rise above the unacceptable? That's why we need spiritual practice. We have to stay there and be surrounded by these things and still either get unaffected, that's hard, but at least get less affected. Only by spiritual practice is it possible. As we rise above, as we go higher, things on the ground start getting smaller. It's not that things have become small, we have risen above. It's not that things have changed around us. We are trying to rise above by our sadhana, by our satsang, by our sadachar, by our spiritual practice. That's how we can do. Therefore, the three things we need to do is, number one, be realistic in your expectations. Number 2, be prepared even if the realistic expectations are not fulfilled. Number 3, after being prepared and it's getting too much on your nerves, number 3, be spiritual to rise above it. And I summarize it in my favorite acronym, CAR. And in the CAR, C stands for change what is changeable. You can try and change by being realistic, helping the people around you. And when you can't, then the A in the CAR stands for accept what is unchangeable in people. Come to terms with it. Be prepared. It's okay. We'll go on. And when you can't even accept it and it gets onto your nerves, a third is R, which is in an extreme case scenario, remove yourself from the unacceptable. But in most cases, rise above the unacceptable, which is where be spiritual. So be realistic, be prepared, be spiritual. CAR, change the changeable, accept the unchangeable, remove in extreme cases, or most cases, rise above the unacceptable. Now, it's not that everybody should be peaceful. It's not that people shouldn't get angry. Anger has its positive use as well. On the battlefield of Kurukshetra, if Arjun wouldn't have got angry, Arjun was trying to be peaceful, Lord Krishna incited him to get angry. Why? Because if he wouldn't be angry, those vicious elements like Duryodhana and his 100 brothers who were causing such havoc in society to the extent of bringing a woman like Draupadi into the assembly to strip her naked. I'm not sure if such people need to be dealt with great affection and compassion. And they were given multiple chances. Not that they weren't given chances. They were given multiple chances, and despite all of that, if they weren't, then Krishna had to bring Arjun to use his anger to deal with this for social justice. Hanuman in the Ramayana expressed his anger when he went to Lanka, where Ravan resided. Ravan was dealing with women in a horrible way. He had hundreds of women whom he had kidnapped from their husbands, and even young girls who were not married, and was trying to molest them. He even kidnapped Sita for that matter. Hanuman utilized his anger for a constructive purpose. Imagine the armies in our respective countries. If they do not get angry, if they do not use that anger to deal with the enemies, to deal with the opponents who are trying to kind of come and create havoc. Imagine if we don't deal with the terrorists. If anger is not used against the terrorists, you can imagine the kind of havoc that will create in the society. Imagine if the victims of the Nirbhay case, the Nirbhay's rape case in Delhi, if that girl was raped and if the perpetrators of the crime were allowed to go free, imagine what it would create in society. Anger is needed to bring in justice. Of course, that anger cannot be used by anybody. We should not take the law and justice in our hands. We have to allow those who are responsible for doing it to do it. And unfortunately, if those responsible people become corrupt itself, then the whole system goes for a toss. And if we have been victims of some serious crime or abuse, rather than being angry, we have the right to be angry, of course, because we've been dealt with so badly. I'm not saying I'm completely empathetic with you, but it's our choice. If we want to live a peaceful life, rather than being angry, we should deal with it. One, dealing with it is forgiving. That's too much when it's so much pain in the heart. But then we should at least pass that case to a system of social justice where they could deal with it properly. Because if we take law in our hand, we're just messing it up. And therefore, I think anger can be positively and constructively used as well. And I'm talking of extreme case scenarios here, but anger can also be practically and realistically used on a day-to-day basis. You know when? When we are not victimized by anger. When we have taken complete control of our emotions, we can use anger as a tool to help somebody and to serve somebody. If we truly mean good to others and we truly want to serve the people around us, family, spouses, children, parents, siblings, whoever, and in different cases this principle will be applied differently based on their levels, the respect levels, the relationship. But anger can be utilized as a tool if we are in complete control of emotions. For example, when somebody is not doing right, let's say for example your child, is not doing right, and you've invested in that relationship and you've really given the child the best, and you are in control, and the child is seeing that you don't snap, you don't get irritated, you're not kind of getting angry all the time, then every now and then, once in a while, to utilize it as a tool, which means to express it, not that you're feeling it, but you're expressing it, your disappointment, you're expressing your concerns in a proper way, not by snapping out. That anger can probably be an impetus for the other person to improve, because even that person can say that this is not malicious, this is not vicious, this is not frustrated anger, this is a genuine expression of concern, which is actually going to bring out the best out of me. And therefore, in conclusion, the reflection is this. Yes, it's expectation that is driving us mad when it's not fulfilled. And how are we going to deal with those expectations? Be realistic, be prepared, and be spiritual. The acronym is CAR: change what is changeable, accept what is unchangeable, and rise above the unacceptable in most cases, and in extreme case scenarios, remove yourself from the unacceptable, extreme case scenarios. Anger can be constructively used as well. If those people who are responsible in positions of authority become peaceful, the world is going for a toss, because they're going to be elements who, despite giving chances, despite trying to correct them, they're not going to change. And therefore, you have to have people who may, after giving chances, have to deal with people in a certain way so that the others do not suffer because of that. And on a personal note, we can also sometimes utilize some element of anger if we are in complete control of our emotions, only if we have done everything possible in our control before whatever we have spoken, and only as a service to the person whom we are dealing with, to help them, not in a vicious and malicious way, but in a gentle, and there's nothing like gentle anger, but in a sensitive, dignified way, we can express our disappointment and help the person come up. Somebody said it's been too long today. I'm very sorry for going on for too long, but the topic was such as well. My apologies for going too long, and I wish to see all of you tomorrow morning, again at Indian Standard Time, 8 o'clock. Until then, have a great day ahead. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.